Hi, and welcome to the Virtually Yours podcast, Outsourcing Mysteries Exposed, the no BS hustle-free podcast for business owners who outsource or provide outsourcing services. I'm your host, Rosie Shilo, virtual assistant advocate and owner of Virtually Yours, the virtual assistant network. Let's get started. Hi, and welcome to Outsourcing Mysteries Exposed. I'm your host, Rosie Shilo. In business, we have so many emotions and factors that drive us or slow us down from day to day or even minute to minute. Today, I want to talk about a specific emotional driver, fear, specifically fear of failure. Some people are motivated by fear. It gets them moving, taking action, and making changes. But for others, fear can stop them in their tracks and result in them kind of freezing in the spot, not taking any action. Fear of failure is one of the most common reasons or excuses I hear from people who have hit a block in their business. And I think that that's one of the biggest blocks that I've had over the years that kind of, stops me in my tracks and makes me change direction possibly when I shouldn't. Thinking about this recently inspired me to take stock on what fears I hold and how they've impacted my business journey. And I think a lot of people who I come into contact with they think that I don't suffer from fear of failure or comparisonitis or imposter syndrome, but I do. I think that although I suffer it less now than I used to, everyone has these little demons popping up from time to time. And yeah, I used to suffer from it a lot. So it's taken quite a bit of time for me to get my head around changing the way I think so that it's not something that I'm having to worry about too often. But yeah, it still rears its ugly head every now and then. I talk to my students about not comparing ourselves to other people's show reels all the time, but I know it's really hard when I think we're almost hardwired to compare ourselves to others, and these show reels, that's kind of like, that's all we're seeing. So anyway, I looked at my business journey and I checked in on what was going on when things didn't quite work out. And the most obvious cases for me were when I went into partnerships with other people. Now, I've done this twice with Virtually Yours, and I've also explored other group partnerships once or twice, and they just didn't quite work. And the question to me was why? Now, if I'm really honest with myself, it was because of my own fears. My fear of failure, my fear of not being good enough. And when I've got those fears and I let them control me, my performance is reduced. I'm less energized and excited, and I start to make mistakes. I stumble. I start to feel guilty about my own performance, and then things sort of spiral out from there. And it makes it very, very hard for the other people who are, in the partnership with me. And possibly they have those issues themselves as well. I don't know. But for me, looking back, that I think is the main problem that I had with the partnerships was myself. So I can't look back and blame those partnership failures on anybody else. I don't berate myself over it because there's no point, but I'd be an idiot not to learn from it. Since the last partnership I had, I've avoided any kind of partnerships like the plague, because even though I really liked my partner, I still had this stuff taking control, and I felt, I just really hated the feeling that I wasn't performing the way I needed to. And it's just a really yuck kind of sensation. And so, I decided that this just wasn't the avenue for me, and I've avoided it. But I do work alongside people, but I do that in ways that I feel comfortable in, that don't put me under so much pressure that, I fall over. And that's my strategy. But is it a good one? Is it avoidance or is it learning? I think it's a bit of both. Now, Tony Robbins talks about how people will do more to avoid pain than to gain pleasure. If I had an amazing partnership which allowed me to reach more people and impact more people, that would be a huge pleasure. But I fear the pain of having to step up more, of being more accountable, of having to show up more, and it not always being on my terms. These fears can also stop people from marketing their business, from following up leads, or from bringing on contractors like virtual assistants to help them. And I want you to think about whether that is something that has, sat with you. Frankly, it's all a pain in the butt. I know that. When I think about that kind of fear, I realize almost instantly that what I'm picturing is my little nasty person on my shoulder that I call the itty bitty shitty committee. A wonderful coach of mine, Diana Petty, many years ago introduced me to this little devil and gave it a name. And so I think that knowing the name, so having giving it a name, it's kind of like Rumpelstiltskin. I have more power over it, the fact that I can just call it the itty bitty shitty committee. And I've got some VAs around me that have given their itty bitty shitty committee an actual name, which I think is good. It gives you more power over it, but at the same time you've got to remember not to give it power in return. The itty bitty shitty committee tells you it won't work. It tells you why you'll fail and how dumb you'll look. I think avoidance is all about shutting up the itty bitty shitty committee instead of taking control back. So what I've been doing is shutting it up, but not necessarily taking that control, because for me, I can see there's an opportunity being missed. So what can we do to take that control back, or at least work on it? So I was having a think about this. I think the first thing we need to do is start with self-talk, the way we talk to ourselves. Don't mistake the itty bitty shitty committee's words for your own words. They're the words of doubt and shame. You know better than that. You know you are better than that. So talk to yourself with love and compassion. And while you're doing that, look at the big picture, your big why. You need to look beyond the fear of right now and see where you could be, and use that to plan each step and get inspired to actually take them. Always remember that mistakes are opportunities. If I take the wrong road when I'm traveling in my car or I'm walking, I always figure there was a reason. I think maybe there's a great roadside junk pile up ahead, which is like heaven, or a beautiful bird or tree that I should see, or maybe someone needs me. Maybe there's an animal injured up there, or maybe it was to stop me from being hit by another car if I went the other way. So I look usually, if I'm not getting really cranky, at what the good of it could be, not the pain of it being the wrong road. In business, if you take that same line of thinking, and I'm talking to myself here too, you'll enjoy the journey more and fear less. You also need to consider worst case scenario, and really, I just try to think about what's the worst thing that could happen, temporary embarrassment, loss of money, what's going to happen? And then compare it to the daily life of someone living in a war-torn country, and then get a grip, okay? What really is the worst that can happen, and what does that mean to you? What's the contingency plan to deal with that? We joke around here about the line, but did you die? So use that. However, fear is nothing to be taken lightly. For some people, it's crippling and may stem from past trauma or conditioning. And if that's the case for you, make sure you get help. You don't have to live like that. The world is out there for you to explore and enjoy. And I'd really love for you not to let fear stand in your way any longer. There's some great support programs out there these days you can tap into, including online counsellors, ones that you can message. There's always been Beyond Blue, and there's local counsellors that you could tap into if you want to sit down and have a face-to-face chat. Or you might find that a mentoring session with someone like myself or a different coach that you resonate with, one or two sessions might help you shift the way you think. But make sure that you look at the severity of your fear and take that into account and look at addressing it, because you don't want it to be holding you back. And that's what fear does. It can hold you back. You might think that it's keeping you safe, but it's stopping you from having opportunities. Fear can also inspire change to make things better in the long run. And so fear is most crippling in the here and now. So that's why, when I'm talking about your big picture, knowing what your big picture is vital. You need to see why you would conquer the fear. What pleasure will you gain once you step past it? There's obviously got to be a benefit there that's going to inspire you. So please be kind to yourself and to each other. Seek your big why. Look for opportunities and seek help when needed. And have a look and see, is what I'm doing now, is my current behavior fear of failure, or is it something else? And if it is fear of failure, you can work on it. You can fix it. I hope you have an awesome day, and I'll catch you next time on Outsourcing Mysteries Exposed. Take care. Hey, thank you for listening to the Virtually Yours podcast, Outsourcing Mysteries Exposed. Between now and our next session, I know you're going to be hanging out to take some action on outsourcing in your business. So head on over to virtuallyyours.com.au and you can download some information there about the best ways to outsource for business growth. If you're a virtual assistant, make sure you join us. We have an amazing virtual assistant community at Virtually Yours, Aussie VAs connecting and helping each other grow. Have a fantastic day, and I'll see you at the next podcast.